Back in 2021, I had a dream about a great reset.
Dependency, artificial intelligence, cosmic warfare. A quote that I received was, either you are going to depend on their system or you're not. So that download was basically, we are going to be given a choice. Either you are going to comply or you are not.
I received the prophecy that we would have to get to know the land the way that our ancestors did. We would have to start growing food again. We would have to start depending on ourselves, becoming more self-sufficient, and also building community so that we can sustain life, but also be in a space where we can all dwell and evolve. To this day, we are going through government shutdowns. We are also going through a major world transformation as the collective consciousness rises. In that dream, I also prophesied that there would be a moment where we would all go through some type of transformation.
Transition is very inevitable. It is imminent. And I do believe that we are being called to allow ourselves to transform through these experiences. That no matter what is happening right now, we are being called to do the best that we can to show up.
Which we're all going under now. I made this prediction again back in 2021, and I did so on the Saiyonan Archives podcast. At the time, it was called the Magick of Eden podcast. I will make sure to link everything that you need down in the description box below. The reason why I'm mentioning this now is because in order for me to let you know what we can expect, I have to kind of go back in time. I will make sure to link that down in the description box. I normally do not come on here to give predictions and things like that. However, I'm going to start doing that apart from writing, apart from tarot, apart from poetry and things of that nature. Because of course, not only am I a seer, I am someone that has the ability to discern, but also the ability to predict things, not using astrology. Even though I have done predictions using astrology, I usually receive prophetic messages via dreams, via visions, and downloads and hundreds of things of that nature. That is the reason why I'm saying this. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nuna. I am a poet. I am a seer. I am a witch, I am a writer, a wise woman, and the keeper of the Saiyonan archives. I am known for merging the arts of poetry and magic, and I also do weave poetry and prophecy. I'm going to be giving you a downloaded message that I have been receiving for the past, I want to say, a couple of years now. I am known for making predictions behind the scenes, but I'm getting used to making predictions, of course, and not just making predictions, but also giving prophecies and whatnot on public platforms. I started off over at Magick of Eden, and that was at Magick of Eden YouTube channel, and also at Magick of Eden on Instagram. That's where everything started. My journey started, I want to say, back in 2019. That's when I actually started working with the public. That's when I started working more so on on social media and things like that. Although I was inconsistent, I'm now in a space where I'm a lot more consistent, and I'll make sure to give you any snapshots, screenshots, or receipts, if you will, because I understand that making predictions and making claims, of course, you want to come with the receipts. I'll more than likely link some pictures and whatnot in the video. The reason why I'm saying this is because, not because I want to scare you, but because I want you to understand that we are in a time right now where if you are building community, if you are in a space where you have a gift that you want to share with the world, if you are in a space where you feel lost, if you are in a space where you feel that you're breaking away from people, that your relationships are ending, that things are happening in your life, and you feel that there are so many different types of breakdowns, and I feel like if you're listening to this, and chances are, not only are you undergoing a deeply rooted personal, spiritual, emotional, mental transformation, you're also being called to remember who you are, remember your power, and also start to create and curate spaces, not only for your home, not only for you, but also for your community, whether that be your local community or whether that be your global community, your online community, and things like that. The reason why I'm saying this is because, as you know, and as you can tell, there are so many things that are happening in our lives right now. We have seen the collective shadow. We have seen the collective light. We are now in a space where not only are we being called to integrate and harvest the things that we've been reaping and things of that nature, but we're also called right now to balance, as well as get ready to purge a lot more out, because there's going to be a lot more people coming out who are going to be not in charge of, but in charge of, for lack of better terms, of our communities and things of that nature, because we are meant to progress in humanity. I want to say this as well. If you are someone who feels right now that you are struggling to create community, or if you feel right now that you are struggling to believe in yourself, if you're someone who finds yourself struggling to find purpose, this is such a beautiful time. And the reason is because more than likely you're called to not only shed that old skin, which is something that we've been saying, but you're also called to heal with a community of people. This is going to require you to have a lot more vulnerability. This is going to require you to be a lot more transparent. And this is going to require you to be a lot more open. And the reason is because people have grown tired. And now we are in a space where we are realizing that community is essential. I'm going to also make sure that I link a video here where we talked about us having to go and having to honor community and things of that nature. What I'm seeing for the future is that there's going to be a lot more people who are going to start more businesses, but also we are going to come together as a community to bring back our farmers markets. We are going to start bringing back our mom and our pop shops. Apothecaries are going to become the new normal. In fact, this was something that I also mentioned a couple of years ago, I think it was, where again, apothecaries will become the new normal. You will start to see a lot more farmers markets again, as I just stated. You will also start to see things like where people will come together in communities. And you know how they used to kind of have those markets where you would have food here and you would have someone selling something here, like soaps right here and things like that. I do see that happening a lot more within our communities because we're understanding that governments and big businesses, these are not entities that we can fully trust. And these are not entities that have or persons, if you will, or individuals that have our best interests at heart. So I do feel that the reason why Spirit is calling me to say this is because if you are someone, again, that has been struggling, if you are someone that is not sure what your purpose is, Spirit is saying for you to look within yourself, but not even just that, allow yourself to tune in and tune out of the noise, because there's a lot of things that is happening in humanity out there in the world, out there in society, where it's breaking itself down because it's trying to find itself. It's like it's trying to solve this really complex mathematical equation to find the core of itself again. And I also do feel right now that you're being called to go within yourself and to think about all the things that you have within you that are holding you back. Think about the things that may be coming up for you. There may be things that are coming up from the past. There may be things that are coming up in your own personal life right now. And the reason why they are is because during Scorpio season, that's a time where we're going to start to purge. We're going to start releasing these old baggage, that we're going to start releasing these things, these old stories that we tell ourselves, because the world is rapidly changing. The world is rapidly coming to a space where it has to figure itself out. And with that does come destruction. With that does come the divine feminine, the rise of the divine feminine. This is something that we've been talking about. If you guys have known me and you guys know that how we, kind of get together behind the scenes, we talk about that. But there is a rise of the divine feminine, specifically the dark or the shadow aspect of the divine feminine that's on the rise. And the reason is because so many aspects of us have been suppressed. So many aspects of us that lived, that needed to survive, right? In that old world, we needed to survive. And so we suppressed those aspects of ourselves. And because of that, we ended up kind of deviating away from the purpose. We lost the knowing that we are the purpose. And now we're coming back remembering ourselves. And this is the reason why I say that we're on a path of remembrance. Along the path of remembrance, we are going to go through a lot more destruction. I do see that things will 100% get worse before it gets better. But what I do see is that the more that we trust each other, the more that we become transparent, the more that we start to honor the fact that we have life experience, the more that we allow ourselves to heal, the more honest we are, the more transparent we are, and the more that we open ourselves up to these endings, the more that we can welcome in these new partnerships, these new alignments, and these new alliances. You yourself, who may be going through something, who's having a hard time with that Chiron, right? Who's having a hard time with that wounded healer. You're now in a space where you're being called to not just confront, but to surrender to the fact that there is healing needed in that space because of where you are headed in your life. I hope that I haven't lost you yet. I know that sometimes when I'm not doing a structured video, things can kind of feel like all out of balance and they can feel kind of like out of whack because I'm just kind of talking. But essentially what I'm saying is that we are all in a space where collectively we are going through major breakdowns, breakups, the falling apart of relationships, the falling apart of things, maybe things you've been building for the last 20 plus years, right? This could be a relationship that you were in for the past 20, 30 years, or it could be a project that you had going on, or it could be a job. So many things are falling away because we built those things out of a need to survive, and we built those things out of a need to make it. But now this life that we're moving into, as we raise our consciousness collectively, we understand that it's not even about survival anymore. Now it's about coming together, and now it's about us making it as a species. And so what I do feel is that spirit is asking for you to understand that the mundane really is just practice, because there's something greater in you. There's something that you have that's a greater part of your purpose that's going to need for you to start to be more honest about the things that you're going through. And also that's where you start to heal, you start to confront these things, and you start to allow yourself to break away from them, because they are the very things that are holding you back or anchoring you to the pit of, or to the abyss of whatever you may be going through. The reason why I feel that spirit is calling us to do this now is because, again, we are going through a major transformation as a species. And the more that we do that, the more that we start to see things, the more that we see things for what they are, the more that we start to see people for what they are. And spirit is saying is that if you are someone who is going through it right now, spirit is wanting you to honor the endings. Spirit is wanting you to honor where you are in your life. And also spirit is asking for you not to rush. And the reason why is because in the old world, you needed to rush because you had to keep up with their timing, because you had to keep up with their agendas, because you had to keep up with their calendars. But now spirit is saying is that you're returning back to your original calendar. You are returning back to origin. The origin of you is who you are outside of the trauma, who you are outside of their ideologies, who you are outside of their rules and regulations, who you are outside of what they told you to be that benefited their system. Because as the system collapses, you are now meant to find or rediscover or return to who you are, because that system is no longer here. That system is crumbling in on itself. It's falling into itself. The ground, the concrete, right, is opening up. Everything's kind of caving in. That's the reason why you see so many businesses that they're shutting down. You see so many businesses that are, they have to restructure and they're making way for AI and things like that. And that also brings me to another thing that I want to say. There is going to be a major split, and that split is happening right now. And by the split, I mean that you're going to have people who are going to be full blown AI, and then you're going to have people who are going to be in the middle, who choose a middle way, who choose to integrate it for the collective humanity, for the benefit, for the progression of humanity. And then you have those who are a bit more, of course, extreme and say, nope, we're going to go all the way back to the old times. We're going to go all the way back to the old ways and whatnot, and we're going to reject everything. I do feel that this is where you have to use your discernment and see how you can either integrate these two aspects or decide to go all the way back, but not in a way where you limit yourself, but in a way that allows you ease, comfort, flow, alignment, and harmony. And if you feel that in your life that you cannot allow certain things into your life, then spirit says to honor that. It's not the fact that you're doing anything wrong. You're simply honoring where you are in your own life. And that's the best thing that you can do. It does not matter what anyone tells you. If you are someone who was fully against AI, then you can be fully against AI. Spirit is wanting to remind you of your humanity. And even if people decided that they were going to integrate that or that they weren't, to not judge the situation so much or not judge the person so much, but rather allow people to be on their own path, because no matter what, we're all returning back to the same place. As long as you have honesty, integrity, transparency, love, compassion, that in itself will foster love. It will foster understanding. It will foster wisdom, and it will also create or help you to create a space that not only you can dwell and be safe, but then you also help to create that for your community. as things start to come to a culmination, as things start to come to an end, you may feel called to become a lot more of a humanitarian. That was something that I also again predicted in that podcast episode that I linked down in the description box. If you haven't listened to that yet, please listen to that after this video. Please just continue, because there may or may not be more messages to come through. But what I want to say is that there is a huge call to environmentalism, and environmentalism means you allowing yourself to study the environment, but also honor the sacredness of the environment, honor the sacredness of the land, honor the sacredness of the animals, honor the sacredness of the rhythm, of the cycles, and how the land works, because these are things I just heard to listen to the heartbeat of the earth. You really want to start communing, honoring, respecting, having ritual, creating space for the trees, for the birds. You want to make sure that you are honoring nature, because nature will give to you when you give to it. We are not separate from nature. We are of nature. And I do feel that people are returning back to those ways of understanding. They're returning back to that wisdom. They're awakening, or not even just awakening, but remembering the sacred wisdom of the earth. They're remembering the sacred wisdom of the elements. And I do feel that if we're going to progress in humanity, that there are going to have to be a lot more humanitarian pursuits. I also do feel that there is this really strong collective or Aquarian energy that's coming through. And I know that this has a lot to do with Pluto and Aquarius. I may or may not do a video going through or talking about Pluto and Aquarius and the houses. What I do want to say is that Pluto being in the sign of Aquarius, it is going to bring up, expose any type of secrets dealing with technology, anything dealing with humanity, humanity's consciousness and things like that, but also the shadow aspect to technology and things like that. So I do want to say that I do want you to keep your eyes out and keep your eyes open for anything dealing with I just heard digital marketing, but there's something about digital marketing come through. There's something about spies and drones and things of that nature. There's something coming through about how I just heard something about I just heard crypto or something there's something about like the dark web that's coming through right now. I'm not really sure what that's about, but I'm hearing things as I'm talking. So also real quick, for those of y'all that don't know, as I'm talking, I may hear things and I'll say them and it seems random, but keep a note of those things. You may want to write those things down, because that's just simply how my mind works. Okay. Anyway, going back to what I was talking about. The fact that Pluto is in a sign of Aquarius, this is going to be a major highlight, and this is going to be a collective transformation, especially in terms of how we use technology and how we integrate that for either the progression of humanity or for the devolvement, or whatever the word would be, or the lack of progression of humanity and whatnot. I do feel that if people have been abusive with technology, that's going to be exposed. Also, there's something about computer forensics that's coming through, or technological forensics. It's kind of like how if there was a compromise in your technology or your device or whatnot, they go back and they trace things to see what happened, where it came from, and things like that. So that's something that's coming through as well. I'm hearing something about another data breach, but this does feel a lot larger. If I'm not mistaken, it feels like a lot larger. It almost kind of feels like the word is conceal. So I'm also hearing something about these businesses and these governments kind of trying to conceal certain information from being leaked. Some of them are not going to be successful. Some of them may be, but I just heard something about like a file, like some type of like leaked file. I don't know if that has to do with like the presidency or whatever, but it almost kind of feels like there's something where someone's trying to prevent these files from being leaked. And that's something that I feel is happening. Also, encryptions. I just heard like the word encryptions that's coming through, encrypted. Make sure that if you have any saved passwords on your devices, that you be very careful with that, because if you are compromised, then your stuff can be used. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not scaring you. I'm not trying to do that. If I am, I apologize. I'm just letting you know that if you have any saved passwords, you want to either change those, or you want to make sure that you keep those passwords in a space where they're not easily not reachable, but they're not easily seen, or they're not easily detectable. You may want to change those passwords, because there's a lot more coming through about passwords, data breaches, and things of that nature. But anyway, yes. The point of the video is to let you know that there are several things that are changing in humanity, and there are several things that we are going through and changing in our own lives. I do feel called to say that if you have big energy, now is your time. There are a lot of people who benefited from superficial systems. There are a lot of people who benefited from the superficial aspect of spirituality. There are several people who benefited from the glamorization and the glorification of certain things in the spiritual community and, you know, maybe the artsy community or whatever you want to call it. But now we're in a space where people are demanding the truth. People are wanting real experiences, and people are truly wanting deep and meaningful and impactful connections. If you are someone that felt like they had to suppress who they were in that old system, now is your time, because people are starting to understand that beauty in certain instances and, you know, beauty and aesthetic and things like that, yeah, they may be important and that's fine, but people are starting to look past the glamification, the glorification, and, you know, whatever else, right, that of beauty and standards and things like that, because people are wanting a real experience. It's not to say that your aesthetics or that the way that you look or the way that you dress or carry yourself isn't important, but what I am saying though is that people are starting to become a lot more drawn to you intellectually. They're starting to become a lot more drawn to you energetically, as opposed to simply just how you look. And when people are sitting there trying to define you based upon how you look, they themselves are going to have a hard time progressing. And the reason why is because it's not soulful. You are moving into a space where you're becoming a lot more soulful, where you're not just necessarily demanding more soul, but you are requiring you yourself, your soul is shining through. This in itself also points me to say real quick that because of that, some of you, because your soul is activating, your purpose is activating, you're probably going to find yourself going back to either 13 signs astrology, or you may find yourself wanting to go more towards Vedic astrology or even sidereal or sidereal, however you pronounce it. And the reason is because that's where the soul activates. See, tropical astrology is good for the ego. It's good for, you know, us here on earth. It's good for how we maneuver our personality and things of that nature, how we calculate people's personalities and things like that, right? But when it comes to the mind, when it comes to the soul, that's when you look truly to sidereal or Vedic. For example, in sidereal astrology, if that's even how you pronounce it, my ninth house stellium becomes in a sign of Sagittarius, right? And my midheaven, if I'm not mistaken, I believe is still in Capricorn. I can't remember. But anyway, a lot in my chart, everything is in alignment. Like Aries rules my first house, Taurus my second, Gemini my third, so on and so forth, right? But then in that ninth house, how I have it in tropical astrology, how it's a ninth house stellium with 6 planets there, and the ninth house in Capricorn, well, then that switches over to Sagittarius. So in tropical, I'm considered Capricorn, but in sidereal or Vedic, I'm actually a Sag. And this was something that I noticed within my own life. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, of course, I'm only using myself as an example. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because when your soul is aligned and when your soul is being activated and integrated, for some of you, you don't have to listen to this and you can toss it out. Do what you do. I understand that. But for some people, they more so gravitate more towards their sidereal or their Vedic. And the reason is because it feels like their soul is being fully activated. Tropical astrology becomes a way for them to maneuver throughout the reality in a very mundane and also a very ego driven way, perhaps, maybe. And for some people, when they're fully in their soul without their ego and things like that, they then start to activate that sidereal aspect. If you guys heard that, that's my neighborhood is, you know, being busy at this time of night. But anyway, so yes, there are a lot of things in humanity that are changing. There are a lot of things that are going under these deeply rooted transformations. Year of the Snake is almost done, of course. And so now we're moving further into the progression where things are going to start becoming a lot more cemented. If you have any placements in your 10th house, the sun, for example, or you may have Aquarius, or maybe not Aquarius, or maybe you do, or Saturn or whatever, or if you have anything in your public houses, this is your time right now to start to prepare, because you're going to be in the forefront, because a lot of people that were once in power, and this also does include people that were in the spiritual community. This also does include people that were, I did that because there was a fly there, by the way, just in case you guys didn't know that, but this fly got in when my fiance and my son was outside. But anyway, so yes, This also does include people that were in power, people who do kind of tend to flex their authority and their credentials and things like that. It's becoming less about your credentials, and it's becoming a lot more about how much life experience do you actually have, and how much of it can you actually speak to without instructing me. And so because you yourself may be listening to this who has a lot of life experience, you yourself may feel like, okay, I have a lot to share. I have a lot of life experience that I went through. I have a lot that I've learned, and I want to start implementing that. That is perfect. Maybe you want to start a YouTube channel. Maybe you want to start a podcast. Maybe you want to create something where you can actually create something in person for your soul group to benefit from. Maybe you want to start a church. Maybe you want to start a 508. Maybe you want to start a bookstore, or maybe you want to purchase a bookstore. I don't know. There is no limit to what you can do, right? I feel like now you're in a space where Spirit is saying is that, okay, now that you're doing the healing, now that you've done the healing for some of you, maybe you've done the healing. Now you're in a space where you are starting to not only integrate, but you're becoming the embodiment of your highest self. With that comes awareness. With that does come implementation. With that does come you walking and being the embodiments of the wisdom that you've acquired along the way. Become the embodiments of what you know. Live it, breathe it, be it, know it. Have conviction in yourself. Trust yourself, because you are going to need it moving forward. Thank you so much for tuning into this message. Thank you so much for listening to this. I hope that it wasn't too sporadic and everywhere, and I hope that you were able to follow along. I will make sure to do better with these readings and things like that. I will make sure to do better when it comes to grounding and things of that nature. For now, I needed to get this out, and the reason was because if I didn't, I was going to end up procrastinating. I know that the energy does feel a little bit different. I'm not here kind of being giggly and things like that, and the reason is because to me, this is a very serious matter, and I take things like this very seriously. Of course, I'm still here. Of course, I still love you. Of course, I do want us to have a good time and things like that. But when it comes to these kind of topics, it's really not to play about. It's one of those things where we have to take ourselves seriously. You are becoming the next global leader. You are becoming the next community leader. You are becoming one of the people, right? One of the souls here to bridge the gap between these worlds. And you and your expertise and your life experience is needed now more than ever. People are leaving their old lives looking for something real, because who they were drained. They were drained of resources. They were drained of time. They were drained of love. They were drained of energy. And you are going to help to replenish them. You are going to help to nurture them. And of course, before you can nurture, intend to, and, fully be immersed and devoted to anyone else, then you yourself have to be devoted to yourself. And with that, I do want to say, I do love you. And I also do have a space here where you can dwell, where you can work your magic, where you can work your ritual, where you can pour out so that I can pour into you, so that when you go out into the world, you're replenished and you feel good. And next thing you know, we just have this harmonious, loving family community where we are there for each other and where we are the embodiments of our best. Okay? Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, my name is Nuna. I am so glad and excited that you're here with me, and I hope that you were able to listen to this all the way through. I'll make sure to leave any links down in the description box that you will need. I'll also make sure to link some things down in the comment section where I normally would. Of course, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. Make sure that you, of course, like it, and also make sure that you leave a comment. Send this to anyone that you think will benefit from it. And I'm hoping that you subscribe to this YouTube channel, because I'm going to be giving a lot more prophecies. I'm going to be sharing a lot more things. I'm going to come to you giving you guys a lot more prophecies and whatever else that I can to help you along your journey. I love you, and I will catch you in my next video.